Chairman, and Senator Murkowski, as always, is very gracious. Gentlemen, this has been informative, enjoyable. I've learned a lot, as I think we all have this morning. I wanted to just piggyback on what Senator Wyden just pointed out, and that is that we ought to be realistic as policymakers here in Washington that if we're going to squeeze Iran, that we're going to see a risk premium then built into international oil markets. I think you all agree, and I think it would behoove all of us here when we started talking about high oil prices and therefore high prices at the pump, and we become outraged, we first ought to say we've all, for the most part here in Washington, said it's in our national security interest to squeeze Iran, and as a part of that process, we can anticipate gasoline prices are going to rise. We ought to be straight with the American public that that's in part what's happening. And I do think that Senator Cantwell made some good points about the difference between legitimate hedgers and speculators. It'd be interesting to try and differentiate between the two. But in that context, I wanted to follow up on what she began to allude to, which is international global energy markets. And could you all address how the U.S. could support competitive and open global energy markets? How do we work with the international community so we can reduce the pain at the pump, not just for our citizens, but as Senator Cantwell pointed out, Japan, the Europeans, and the Chinese. I've been pushing the State Department and the USTR to see what they could do to use all options, diplomatic and economic, to help stabilize prices in that arena. But I'd be curious your thoughts, starting with you, Dr. Gruenspect, as to how we could do that.
I mean, again, as you know, EIA is not a policy agency, but I will point out that the State Department is establishing, for the first time, I believe, a new Bureau of Energy, at the Assistant Secretary level. I believe that that's an initiative. I think the nominee has been nominated and actually had a hearing recently. I think even before that, I think there's a lot of outreach. I know in the shale gas area there's been a lot of international outreach, again, not done by us, done by the State Department, but sharing technology, and there's a lot of interest, a lot of investment in foreign companies, in our horizontal drilling and fracking, hydraulic fracturing operations, in part because I think they would like to gain some experience to the extent that plays out in sort of tight oil, which has been discussed at this hearing in part. That's available in the United States. It's been a big, important changer leading to some of the increases in production in North Dakota and the Eagle Ford and some other places in California as well. If that technology becomes more globally available, as one would expect it will, at first shale gas began in the United States and has become global. Maybe tight oil will become global, and that becomes a much opportunity to really change the supply-demand balance in world oil markets. So I think there's a lot of opportunity.
So exporting our technology.
I think exporting our technology and exporting our efficiency technologies, again, because the same thing here, to the extent that vehicles are more efficient globally, we're the biggest gasoline market, but there are other markets for gasoline and diesel fuel around the world. And things we can do to disseminate technologies that either increase supply or reduce demand, and frankly both, is seems very important to me. And I know that the State Department and others in the government are very interested in that.
Dr. Yergin, I know you've got the answer here.
Hardly, but I think that what you're also talking about is encouraging other countries to have more open markets to investment and to ability to make timely investment. And I think that, as you're suggesting, as part of our trade agenda, would be very constructive to this, because that again gets more supplies into the market and more quickly.
And so, augmenting what my colleagues have already said, I think there's two additional pieces. When you look at international institutions, I think the use of the IEF, the International Energy Forum, and the bilateral arrangements, I actually think that by bringing Saudi Arabia into the G20, it really helped in the post-Libyan conflict. There was a day in July, it was either end of June or July, when we had a global security forum at CSIS, and Mike Froman was on our panel. It was the same day as an OPEC meeting. It was Minister Naimi described it as the worst OPEC meeting ever. And there was concern about the U.S. government expressing concern that OPEC didn't step up to the table and increase supplies given that Libya was offline. And the Saudis did. I mean, so the hawks in OPEC, Venezuela and Iran, looked to increase price, not volume. Mm-hmm. The Saudis actually stepped up and said, we want a balanced market, we'll increase supply. So I think we're diluting the impact of OPEC by actually bringing responsible players in the G20. I do think, and Senator Murkowski, I know you've talked about this before, that the IEA sharing arrangement really needs an overhaul in terms of obligations and how we identify stock holding and a bunch of things that we do in joint basis, how we engage China and India. I mean, unless we make the change, that institution is very much in danger of being irrelevant.
Dr. Horsnell, you want to bring an EU perspective for us? Or a British perspective?
I'm not so I'm grand enough to be able to do that, but as on a personal perspective, I mean, I think obviously that there are, as mentioned already, specific circumstances where there is a foreign policy aspect, and I already mentioned perhaps the one that surprises people, that the biggest supply interruption today is the situation in South Sudan and Sudan. So again, I'm sure that's something which state is fully aware of, that there is a major oil component onto that. I think really endorse the comments on working with the IEF, working obviously with Howard's teams working with Jody, improving the transparency of the global markets is always an extremely good thing. I think one thing I'd say also is the IEA and the role of the IEA. I think there has been a drift in recent years for energy policy to become a little unilateral, a little bit bilateral, when clearly multilateral response, it will work better to these kind of aspects. And it's been worrying perhaps a little bit over the course of the last couple of months that the potential effectiveness of some of the levers that are left to control overheated markets might have been diluted by this move towards unilateral, bilateral energy policy, when perhaps we should be building up the IEA rather than undermining it at this point.
If I can add one other thing to follow on what Howard says, the U.S. State Department now has an Energy Bureau, and the reason it has an Energy Bureau is because the U.S. Senate encouraged it to have an Energy Bureau, and that is a difference to have that as a clear component in foreign policy.
I'm sure that was driven by Senator Bingaman and Senator Murkowski, who ably lead this committee. And I would finally just propose that to my colleagues that we could go back to the Murkowski-Bingaman product that we produced in the last Congress and move it forward. There, we would see a lot of positive results on this very topic we're discussing today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Murkowski.